Hello, YouTube. I want to tell you something interesting today about Mars exploration. Those who had participated in the USSR space program years later recall the oddities that accompanied the flights of automatic stations to the planet Mars. I'll introduce you to a few that unfortunately failed, and I'll direct your attention to the playlists in my channel titled Space Exploration, Phobos, Cosmonauts and UFOs for the rest of the very fascinating information. Most of what I'll tell you is not known in the West, except for those who work in specialized sectors of the US space industry, and also the shadow world of national security and espionage, of course. But there's no requirement for the common people like us not to know. And maybe what I'm about to tell you will help Elon Musk in his endeavors too. The person who revealed what I'm about to tell you was a great Soviet scientist. He's retired. He's now in his late 80s. And he's the author of a very interesting book that NASA published in English in 1999. NASA well understood his insight, experience, and knowledge. But what I'm going to tell you, I don't think you will find it in the book. You will find other things there. So I definitely will present information about this fascinating book published by NASA, which was written by brilliant Russian scientists from the Mars program of the USSR. I'll give you a link to where you can find out more. So let's start. The year is 1960. Baikonur, the Soviet spaceport, Cosmodrome. You can find out more about it too, and the UFOs and other strange phenomena accompanying it, whatever was happening in Baikonur or Leninsk, as it was known before. The first Soviet spacecraft sent to the Red Planet burns up in the atmosphere. The reason is engine failure. It didn't surprise the designers. It is a common thing, it happens. But when 3 more Martian spacecraft perished one after the other, it became no joke. Everything goes smoothly during the tests, and after the launch, the equipment seems to be haunted by an evil fate. The next Mars 1 station, which flew closest to the planet, was destroyed by the ordinary gas leak. Vladimir Perminov, the chief designer for deep space vehicles at the S.A. Lavochkin NPO, said the following about this. There was a gas leak from the orientation system. It worked there, in my opinion, for 4 months. Moreover, it is unclear how it is. A gas leak, when everything is checked on the ground, on Earth, necessarily and carefully. The apparatuses behaved like enchanted ones. It seemed that someone was monitoring secret experiments and deliberately disrupting the flight. The next victim was the improved Space Probe 2. Having failed to deploy solar panels, it disappeared into space forever. All further attempts to land Earth vehicles on Mars were unsuccessful to one degree or another. When on October 10, 1960, an accident occurred at the launch site into low Earth orbit, and the first station, Mars 1960A, did not fly to the Red Planet. It did not cause much surprise among the designers. It was a new thing, you can't foresee everything. But when similar situations began to repeat one after another, despite the fact that everything went according to plan in the trials, it involuntarily gave Soviet scientists reason to think. Launched on November 1, 1962, the Mars 1 spacecraft approached Mars, but an emergency situation occurred with it, as with its predecessors. The last communication session took place on March 21, 1963. According to the official account, the impossibility of further radio communication sessions occurred due to a malfunction of the Mars 1 orientation system. Now, the year is 1969. Another Soviet station is taken off from Baikonur. After a few seconds, it crashes. The rocket engine has failed. The next flight is being prepared for a long time and quite carefully. The Mars 2 spacecraft should be the first in the world to make a soft landing on Mars. The probe reaches the planet safely. The descent module separates from it, but a catastrophe occurs a second later. It's like a powerful hand grabbing the apparatus and smashing it against the rocky surface. It seemed that someone was coming up with the most sophisticated ways to interfere with flights. Sometimes they're funny in a macabre sort of way. Before launching, one of the technicians wrote down the cipher instead of the usual digit command, as if under hypnosis. Vladimir Perminov, the chief designer for deep space vehicles at the S.A. Lavochkin Scientific Research Center, recalled, a set point should have been set over the Gulf of Guinea from the spaceship. The set point was set, but it was set backwards. Well, of course, the apparatus remained in orbit. So how to explain how a person set it backwards? He also reads from left to right. Moreover, he read the rules from right to left. So how can you explain it? To put it simply, it was a programming error where it should not have been. Now, May 1971, a new interplanetary station is being sent to Mars. It safely leaves Earth orbit, but without moving onto the trajectory of interplanetary flight, disappears into space. The next attempt is literally in a few days, and there are problems again. Engineers are doing everything possible to prevent failure. Communication is restored, the probe lands on Mars and begins transmitting a video signal. But after 20 seconds, the signal is suddenly interrupted. The device disappeared without having time to look into the Martian mysteries. Vladimir Perminov, chief designer for deep space vehicles at the S.A. Lavochkin Scientific Research Center, stated, I think it was some kind of external force. I would say so. All the time, there are some incomprehensible failures from the point of view of technology, which should not have happened and which did not exist on the Soviet Venusian stations. That's the most interesting part. So, Soviet scientist Vladimir Gennadievich Perminov, Doctor of Technical Sciences, Chief Designer of Deep Space Vehicles from the NPO Lavochkin, the creator of the automatic stations of the Venus and Mars series, which flew to Venus and Mars, respectively. Please see my video about the Martian mysteries. It's in my channel. The link is found in the description to this video. Again, I think you will be very interested. For those of you who want more details, I have the following, but please understand, the explanation is official. Not what Perminov has revealed. In Russian, научно-производственное объединение имени С.А. Лавочкина, NPO Lavochkin Research and Production Association, or shortly Lavochkin Association, is a Russian aerospace company. It is a major player in the Russian space program, being the developer and manufacturer of the Fregat upper stage, as well as interplanetary probes such as Phobos Grund. Mars 1962A also known as Mars 2 MV-4 number 1, also known as Sputnik 22 in the West, was a Soviet spacecraft which was launched in 1962 as part of the Mars program and was intended to make a flyby of Mars and transmit images of the planet back to Earth. Now, 1960. On October 10, 1960, Ammonia 8K-78 launch vehicle was launched from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in the USSR, which was supposed to launch the Soviet automatic interplanetary station Mars 1960A on a flight path to Mars. This was the first attempt in the history of mankind to reach the surface of Mars. Due to the launch vehicle accident, the launch ended in failure. On October 14, 1960, Ammonia 8K-78 launch vehicle was launched from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in the USSR, which was supposed to launch the Soviet Mars spacecraft designation 1960 on the flight path to Mars. The flight program provided for the station to reach the surface of Mars. Due to the launch vehicle accident, this launch also ended in failure. On March 27, 1969, a Proton launch vehicle was launched from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in the USSR, a KD designation, which was supposed to launch the Mars spacecraft on a flight path to Mars. Due to the rocket launch accident, the launch ended in failure. On March 19, 1971, a Proton launch vehicle was launched from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in the USSR with the upper stage D, which launched the Soviet Mars 2 AMS on a flight path to Mars. However, at the final stage of the flight, due to a software error, the onboard computer of the descent vehicle malfunctioned, as a result of which the angle of its entry into the Martian atmosphere turned out to be greater than the calculated one, and on November 27, 1971, it crashed on the surface of Mars. The pennant of the USSR was fixed on board of the space vehicle. It looks like some force has been interfering with Soviet attempts to get to Mars, at least with some of them, but I'd like you to see my video about the incident that happened on Earth during the preparation for the Mars mission. It's eerie, and there is no explanation up to this date as well. Take it all into the account after you see my other videos with this one and understand that Elon may not have an easy task getting to Mars and trying to conquer it, so to say. I'm not even taking into the account the space radiation, which I mentioned in my other videos, and other difficulties facing human biology in outer space. I think there is more. That's what I wanted to let you know today. If you like my research, please support through the links you find in the description to this video. Please subscribe to my channel, like my videos, tell others. Thank you.